Imagine living on a quiet farm, far from neighbors, deep in the Bavarian countryside. Life is simple, almost too quiet. But in 1922, one family's isolated life turned into one of Germany's most chilling unsolved mysteries. In the early spring of 1922, deep in the Bavarian countryside of Germany, a family lived in near isolation. Their farm was known as Hinterkaifeck, a name that would later become infamous. The Grubers were not unlike other rural families of the time. They worked the land, tended livestock, and kept to themselves. But in the days leading up to their deaths, their quiet farm became the stage for one of the most haunting and mysterious crimes in history. The patriarch of the family, Andreas Gruber, was a stern and difficult man. Alongside him lived his wife, Cecilia. Their daughter, Victoria, a widow, also lived on the farm with her two children, 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Joseph. A maid worked for them, but she had recently quit, claiming that the farm felt cursed and that she heard strange noises at night. On March 31st, a new maid named Maria arrived to take her place. Sadly, she would not survive her very first day of work. In the days before the murders, Andreas noticed unsettling signs around the property. One morning, after fresh snowfall, he discovered a line of footprints leading from the woods directly to the house. Strangely, there were no tracks leading back. He also reported hearing footsteps in the attic, even though he knew no one should be there. Keys to the house went missing, tools were misplaced, and yet nothing valuable appeared to have been stolen. The family shared these odd happenings with neighbors, but no one believed them. Life in such a remote place was often filled with odd sounds and imaginations. People brushed it off. But Andreas remained uneasy, locking doors at night and keeping a watchful eye on the farm. On the evening of March 31st, something dreadful unfolded. Investigators later pieced together that one by one, members of the family were lured into the barn. No one knows for sure how the killer managed it, but it seemed that Andreas was the first victim. He was struck down with a mattock, a heavy farming tool. Then his wife was attacked. Victoria followed, and then young Cecilia. In total, 4 family members were killed in the barn that night, one after another. What is especially tragic is that evidence suggested that 7-year-old Cecilia did not die right away. She survived long enough to tear out clumps of her own hair, likely in shock and agony, before succumbing to her wounds. Back inside the farmhouse, 2-year-old Joseph was murdered in his crib, and the new maid Maria was killed in her bedroom. 6 lives ended in one brutal night, and the killer or killers vanished into the darkness. For several days, life at the farm seemed strangely normal to anyone passing by. Smoke rose from the chimney. The animals were cared for. Food was cooked. But when neighbors began to notice that the family had not been seen and the children were absent from school, they grew concerned. Eventually, a search party was formed, and neighbors entered the property. What they found was horrifying. In the barn, they discovered the bodies of Andreas, his wife, Victoria, and young Cecilia stacked and covered with hay. Inside the home, they found Joseph and Maria. The crime scene was like something out of a nightmare. The police were called, but in 1922, forensic science was rudimentary. By the time authorities arrived, curious neighbors had trampled the scene, disturbing vital evidence. Investigators did their best, but what they found only raised more questions. The murder weapon, the mattock, was eventually found hidden in the attic. This chilling detail suggested that the killer had been living in the farmhouse before the murders, perhaps hiding in the attic where Andreas had reported hearing footsteps. The investigation quickly became one of the most baffling in German history. Several theories emerged. Some believed that it was the work of a stranger, perhaps a drifter who stumbled across the isolated farm, killed the family, and then used the house as shelter before moving on. But if that were the case, why were no valuables taken? Nothing significant appeared to have been stolen. Others suspected a more personal motive. Victoria, the widowed daughter, was rumored to have had a deeply troubled relationship with her father, Andreas. There were whispers of abuse, of dark family secrets, and even of incest. Could a rejected lover, a jealous neighbor, or someone with knowledge of the family's secrets have taken revenge? If so, why was the act carried out with such methodical cruelty? Another possibility was greed. Land and inheritance disputes were not uncommon in rural Bavaria. Some wondered whether someone coveted the farm or had a financial grudge against the Grubers. But again, no clear evidence pointed to such a suspect. What makes the case even more chilling is that the killer stayed on the property after the murders. Witnesses reported seeing smoke rising from the chimney days after the family had been killed. The animals were fed and tended to. Bread had been baked in the kitchen. It was as if the murderer or murderers had slipped into the family's lives and assumed their routines, living among the corpses until the bodies were discovered. Hundreds of suspects were interviewed over the years. Neighbors, relatives, and even strangers were questioned, but no one was ever charged. Theories continued to swirl, each one darker than the last. Some believed the killer was a local who blended back into the community. Others thought it was an outsider who had simply vanished after the crime. With so much time passed and evidence contaminated, the case grew colder and colder. One of the most haunting details remains the suffering of young Kazilia. To know that a child lingered in pain for hours after watching her family slaughtered is unbearable. Her torn-out hair became one of the most heartbreaking symbols of the case. Eventually, the farmhouse was demolished. A memorial now stands where Hinterkaifeck once was. But the story refuses to die. Even today, over a century later, historians, criminologists, and amateur sleuths pore over the details. Theories continue to be debated. Was it revenge? Was it jealousy? Was it madness? Or was it simply the act of a shadowy figure who disappeared into history? The truth may never be known. The killer left behind no clear trace, only a sense of terror and unanswered questions. Whoever committed the murders walked away without facing justice, leaving the world to wonder how someone could commit such horror, then calmly live in the victim's home as if nothing had happened. The footprints in the snow, the footsteps in the attic, the missing keys. These were warnings, but no one realized the danger until it was too late. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries in the world. And perhaps the most chilling question is not who did it, but whether that person or those people went on to live ordinary lives afterward. Did they sit among neighbors in the village? Did they go to church, shake hands, and share meals, all while carrying the weight of this unimaginable crime? Or did they vanish into the forest, leaving behind a trail that would never be followed? To this day, no one can say for certain. 6 lives were taken. The farmhouse is gone. But the story of Hinterkaifeck endures, a chilling reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters are not the ones in ghost stories, but the ones living quietly among us. So what do you think really happened on that lonely Bavarian farm? Was it a drifter, a jealous neighbor, or someone hiding the darkest of family secrets? The mystery of Hinterkaifeck has never been solved, and maybe it never will be. Who do you think was behind it? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join me next time for another chilling true crime story. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.